Well, howdy, 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 everybody.
Not
Brad
Teresa.
here with
Teresa?
very good and the critters. So this is doing a separate video here. We've had some highly emotional stuff going on the last few days, and I thought we'd just go ahead and share with you. Um, I don't know how many of you know that I was adopted on my uh, my dad adopted me. My mom was my biological mom, but dad adopted me, and mom passed away this August will be 2 years ago. And when you finally come to realize that there's so many questions that you'll never know the truth about, and that makes it very, very tough. Well, about 15 years ago, Teresa and I, when we were still living in Casper, we'd go up to Deadwood once or twice a year and do some gambling and do some sightseeing and everything, and a lot of cool stuff up there in Deadwood, South Dakota. And one time we were going up there, and Mom threw out kind of a offhand type comment about my sperm donor's brother and wife lived up there. And this was one of those where it just happened so quick, and I never got to ask her any questions. So we got up to Deadwood, and I looked up his name. I knew that my original birth last name was Pedno, and looked him up, found him in the phone book right away. And I agonized for probably a day and a half, 2 days over it, because I didn't know if that was a can of worms I wanted to open up. I didn't know if I was ready. And ever since I can remember, I always had some severe anger issues with my sperm donor. And I'd never met him, never talked to him at all. But there's still a lot of anger issues. And some of the questions that run through your mind is why was my why was my brother and sister worth keeping, but I wasn't? And then there was things that questions I'd ask Mom, and in 1976 maybe I got one answer, and 1984 I may have gotten a completely opposite answer, and so there's so many things that I couldn't get a straight answer. So by the time I was probably about 45 years old, I had enough resentment and anger built up that I was even scaring me. So when we were up in Deadwood, we went over to Spirit. I called Ed and Nancy, and they quickly yeah, that Ed is there's cool up in there. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, they invited us over to their house right away in Spearfish and everything, and
matching eyebrows.
yeah, that was the first thing Teresa said was, "Yep, I can tell you're related. That both of us had the unibrow." And could you grab mine for me too, please?
Are you gonna eat it while you talk?
Nope. I'm going to be a gentleman. And we had a long conversation. I mean, we sat around and talked for hours and hours. And Ed and Nancy got me in touch with Michelle, who's my sister, and she's about 8 years younger than me. And then they were not sure how well Francis would be receptive to meeting me. And so, oh God, a few days later, when we're home, I get a phone call from from Michelle, and we talked for hours and hours, and we talked fairly frequently. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't hearing from her anymore. And finally, my brother Francis got a hold of us, and ever since then, Francis and I usually talk at least a couple times a month, and we compare, and it was interesting because there's some of the things that, even though we grew up 1,000 miles apart, we walked the same. We had pretty much the exact same interest in music, and Teresa said that we walk alike,
You carry
and
yourself like your shoulders and stuff.
yeah, the way we carry ourselves and everything. So, it was really cool, and I grew up with three little sisters, so having a brother was it was just phenomenal. And one of the first things I told Francis, and I can understand that, and I said, I have some severe anger issues with your dad. And if this is going to be a sticking point, I understand. Just let me know. And Francis was just absolutely amazing. And he said, nope, this is just a relationship between you and me. And they came up and visited us in Wyoming a couple times. And Francis and I would talk quite a bit. His wife, Kyunja, is from Seoul, South Korea. Super, super neat lady. And I remember talking to her years later about when she got her citizenship, U.S. citizenship, and the questions that she had to answer to take the test was there. I don't think I could have done it. So
Man,
um, yeah, and some of the things that I had run into with other family members, they were all eager to get to know the wayward son, and um, without exception, everybody says, "Oh, you need to meet him," because he's changed. And it's like, well, last time I saw him, I was 3 months old, so it's going to be hard for me to understand these changes and everything. And when you are the one that has been given up for adoption, you know, and there's especially other siblings. You wonder, well, why were they worth keeping and I wasn't? Or and I'd heard rumors that he had offered to pay for the adoption for Leroy to adopt me, and yeah, just so many things like that. And as time went on, I would get angrier and angrier, and after after we met Ed and Nancy, I received an email from Senior, and all it did was just really, really tick me off. And so I wrote a response, and actually, I think I ended up writing it about 40 different responses before I finally got one that didn't kind of scare me on how angry I was. And as you get older, you realize that maybe you need to let go. Maybe you actually
when
need
you're ready.
when you're ready.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to actually ask this person instead of assuming. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And so I know I shocked the hell out of Francis about 2 weeks ago,
Me too.
and Teresa about lost it there too. About maybe Francis and I could have a conversation with Francis Senior, and originally Francis and Kyunja were going to go out to California and visit with Francis Senior in October, and I said, well, maybe when you're out there that you guys can get on the phone and we'd have a conversation. Well, one of the things is Francis Senior in October is going to be 83 years old, and how would I feel that I let my anger get the best of me, and then he passes away, and then I know I'll never get any answers. And so that's when I suggested that we have a three-way conversation, and in a couple of weeks. And so what we did
And that was
is,
cool.
yeah,
That was cool to witness.
yeah. And my brother Francis went over to Michelle's house, and first off is I called him, and then did a three-way call, and we added in Senior. And I told him at the very beginning of the conversation, okay, I'm not asking you these things to upset you or hurt your feelings or rub salt in an open wound. It's just these are things. Excuse me. Oh, these are things that I really need answers to, and because all my life, and the first one was, why was Francis and Michelle worth keeping and I wasn't, and without going into too much detail on the answers and the questions or the questions and the answers, um, found out that he did think of me quite a bit. That he did not want to. He didn't want to screw up the life that I had,
Or that he thought you had.
or that he thought I had,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And
He didn't blow any smoke up your ass.
no, and he didn't lie to me.
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, he's 83 years old, so he does have some things that happened 60 years ago are little foggy, and me too. But we had a very, very pleasant conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It was funny when you and him and Francis were all being smart asses and
yep.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
And so we did talk about that this October, that Francis and his wife and me and Michelle are going to go to California, and we're going to,
I'm sending Brad
yeah,
because
Teresa's,
I really think he needs to be able to find out more about family history and stuff, and just be able to totally relax, not worry about me, not worry about our animals. You know.
and I really, really appreciated her for doing that. But, I've talked to two of my aunts um, that were just a few years younger than Mom, and it's been long enough that they didn't have the right answers or know the right answers, and they never tried to pretend that they didn't. And it was just nice. There's still questions that I know I will never get an answer a correct answer, but at least we opened up a dialogue and everything.
And he didn't have one bad thing to say about your mom.
No.
Not one
No.
bad thing at all.
No.
Which was really nice.
But back then they were very, very young.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Mom just turned 20 less than a month before I was born, and Francis Senior, he was 22 years old when I was born, and so or 21 years old. So they were very young, very very scared little kids.
Mm-hmm.
So you just gotta let go of the anger.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we will get some sort of relationship going with this.
Well, we didn't say anything to you guys because we weren't sure how it would turn out. It could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
Which you would have never said anything to anybody about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were one nervous Nilly though, right before that phone call.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I
was a basket case, but and if any of you guys have any questions as to my feelings don't hesitate to put it down in the
And Brad's
comments.
not saying that if you are adopted, that you should, do things as he's done them. You may never want to. I mean, or you may decide someday you want to. I mean,
Well, and I don't remember which talk shows used to do the family reunions. The adopted, and
all of them, but
those
yeah.
just used to really piss me off.
Mhm.
And now that I've had a lot of years to think about it, I'm you know I'm anxious to see where this is going to lead. So
Yeah, I mean, well, it's nice to know, like, just even things like, what he did for a living and how tall is he and medical history. And,
mhm.
I know that you want to know more about your grandparents, and all of that. I mean, you want to hear stories about his growing up.
Yep.
And
Well, and one of the things too is his parents, my grandparents, were interred at Manzanar for a couple of years, a year and a half, I think it
people
was.
may not realize that you're part Chinese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Manzanar was basically an American concentration camp for Oriental Americans. And I read an interview with my grandmother Bessie, and her biggest thing is she could not understand why she was sent to Manzanar because she was Chinese. She wasn't Japanese, and she couldn't understand that. But
So your grandpa stayed there with her.
yeah, and even though Grandpa Frank was French and it was French. Um, he stayed the whole time with her. He never left her side, and just seeing some of the hearing some of the stories about relatives. It's like Grandma Bessie's mom. Um, she was found on a beach in Hawaii in the late 1800s. And I know. Yeah, she was 3 years old. They found her on a beach, and she pretty much grew up in orphanages. And I can't remember who told me, but she was one of the first, or she was the first Asian American as a registered nurse in the United States.
Wow.
And then her husband, I do have a wedding picture of them, a copy of the wedding picture that was taken on April 1st of 1914.
Oh, is that them in that
Yep.
picture? Wow.
Yep, Grandma and Grandpa Kong. And I found out later that Grandpa Kong had a bar in Havre, Montana. And when I was younger, a friend of mine, his family was all from Billings, and I don't know how many times that we drove through Havre going from Casper up to Billings. Yeah, so it's just such a small world. But like I said earlier,
And how many times was Senior in Casper, and
yeah,
might even have been in your store, and
yeah. Francis Senior and his wife used to come to Casper and the general area for a lot of rock shows, and because he was really into rock hunting, and him talking about, yeah, I remember when we went into that grocery store, and it's amazing because we might have met several times and never realized never realized who we were talking to. So.
Isn't that amazing?
Yep, it really.
What would have happened if your mom had been in there at the same time?
Oh yeah, if they would have recognized each other, or
I'm sure they would have.
But like I said, if any of you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. If I am not comfortable with answering that questions, I will gently let you know. I won't show any anger or anything like that, because people are curious. So yeah, whatever I can do to answer any questions. So, Teresa, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. thanks for listening. I really, really appreciate it. We love you guys. And say goodbye, Teresa.
Bye, Teresa.
Bye.